the surfboard. So there's some beers behind that.
All right, guys, we are live. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for getting up with us to kick off our full day of events here during our Women in Craft Beer Festival, Beers Without Beards, empowered by Bumble. I'm Grace Whites, Head of Partnerships and creator of BWOB. We have a ton of great activities planned for today, but I'm super excited to wake up and start the day. It's pretty early here on the West Coast for me, learning more about the Samuel Adams Brewing the American Dream program. I don't know if you saw what I did there, waking up and brewing the American Dream. But what is the Brewing the American Dream program, you might ask? Glad you asked. That's why we have Jennifer Glanville, brewer and director of partnerships at Boston Beer Co. here to tell us a little bit more about it. And I don't want to steal her thunder, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of a quick overview. You know, it's really not easy to start a business here in the US or really anywhere. And it certainly wasn't easy for Jim Koch when he started brewing Samuel Adams Boston Lager in his kitchen 36 years ago. When he tried to create Boston beer, he went around to different banks and had trouble securing a loan. And, you know, he was a well-educated white man with 3 degrees from Harvard. And so you can only imagine how difficult it can be for women in our industry or BIPOC-owned businesses in order to succeed in craft beer. So the Brewing the American Dream program, supported by Accion and Opportunity Fund, has provided more than 2,600 loans, totaling $43.7 million to food and beverage businesses, and created more than 9,000 jobs. And more importantly, provided mentoring and coaching to over 11,000 entrepreneurs across the country, 3 of whom you're going to hear from today. So without further ado, I am going to kick it over to Jennifer at Samuel Adams and let her take us away on this journey of learning more about brewing the American dream. So Jennifer, over to you.
Thanks, Grace. We're really excited to be here. My name is Jennifer Glanville, and I am a brewer and director of partnerships, as Grace mentioned. In 2008, we launched the Brewing the American Dream program. Our company, our brewery, and Jim Koch, our founder and brewer, has always given back to the community. We have a very philanthropic mindset, and looking at how can we help our communities. Jim, went back to when he was launching Sam Adams, and as Grace mentioned, despite 3 degrees from Harvard and a lot of contacts in the sort of banking world, he could not get a loan. And traditional banks really deemed food and beverage very risky. And unfortunately, 36 years later, that's still the case. And on top of it, now we have a lot of predatory lenders. So in 2008, Jim launched Brewing the American Dream to provide capital, much needed capital, through Accion and Opportunity Fund, who are our partners, to small business, food and beverage businesses around the country. And then also thinking back to when he started Sam Adams, the nuts and bolts business advice that you need. Again, he didn't know how to start payroll. He didn't have HR, legal. So there's so many different things about starting a business, regardless of what your food and beverage business is. And so the mentoring aspect, as Grace mentioned, we have coached and mentored over 11,000 people in the last 12 years, which is amazing. What I love about that is I really, did some research this year, and that's over $4 million of business coaching that we've been able to provide to small businesses around the country in that time, which I think is amazing. Loaning, again, almost $44 million. The repayment rate for these loans is 98%, which is well above the industry average for small business loans. So we were really excited to continue to grow this program. Part of our program is the Brewery Experience Ship. The Brewery Experience Ship is an application process. We select a winner. We have 3 of our winners here, which is amazing. And part of that is the mentoring piece. So it's a year's worth of coaching and mentoring, but as many of the folks who have been through the program know, it's a lifetime of coaching and mentoring, a lifetime of friendship. We learn as much from our Brewing American Dream entrepreneurs as they learn from us. So it's an amazing opportunity to really grow your business and for us to learn from each other. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists today because I'm so excited they could join us. It's very early for them. I'm on the East Coast, so it's probably why I'm so bright-eyed, had a lot of coffee. I can also have my beer today, which is awesome. So I want to introduce Dally Parker from Chula Vista Brewery in California. We have Alicia Conger from 1912, which is in Tucson, Arizona. And we have Sherry O'Connell-Stantz from Bulldog Beer in Chicago. So I'm going to turn it over to them to give a couple minutes intro on their brewery, and then we're going to jump into some questions. So Dolly, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, guys. Good morning. I am Chula Vista Brewery. We are a brewery on the southern part of San Diego, so literally about 10 minutes from downtown area and about 10 minutes from the Mexican border. We've been in business for going on 4 years, and how we came about was my husband did a 20-year naval career here in San Diego, 20 years of service, and avid world traveler because of his career in the Navy. So he would always come home from deployments and say, honey, I had this really great beer, red ale in Australia, and I'm talking about 20 years plus. And he would say, but I can't find it here. I can't find that specific style or whatnot. And, San Diego was already starting in the boom of craft beer back at that time. So really the inspiration for our business comes from him. I always say he's the one with vision. And so one day he was running in our neighborhood, in our community, and he saw an empty suite, and he's like, that's it. Being in San Diego, we would always have to drive to North Park or Point Loma, which is a little bit North County for us, a good 25, 30-minute drive. And so one of the things that we identified was, just as many breweries as we have here in San Diego, being the capital of craft, we didn't have it in our neighborhood, in our particular geographical area. So we thought, okay, no one's going to bring it to us. Let's just go for it. And this is pretty much where we're at. And, Brewing the American Dream to us was introduced to us by Accion through our bank. And how we started working with Accion is we would go to a lot of coaching sessions, a lot of speed coaching, mentoring, and that's how we were introduced to Sam Adams and the BTAD. And we applied. We had heard about Brewing the American Dream, and that was just a great source of resources for us. I think what the Brewing the American Dream did for us was provide a platform where we know that we have a voice, we have the support, and not only are we a part of the brewing process, but we have something to say, and, being able to share that, and them as well being able to mentor us and, provide all that information that, as a small startup, for example, for us on the first year, flying us to GABF and providing the air and the the traveling stays for us as a small startup company, that could be pretty significant. So having that support and, that just unconditional array of tools and resources was really valuable to us. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we.
That's great. Thank you, Dali. Alicia, can you talk about 1912 Brewing Company?
Sure. So my husband and I own 1912 in Tucson, Arizona. We actually just celebrated our 5th year anniversary for the brewery on July 4th of this year. So yes, very exciting, I know. 5 years, hopefully we'll be making lots of money after this 5 years. Typically, he runs the back of the house and I run the front of the house. We actually have 5 kids, so only 3 at home though. And we also have 3 grandchildren. So in addition to running the brewery, we both actually work full time. So we're constantly on the go, very busy. But we love to drink good beer. And so we're always doing that, of course, at 1912, and love to go out and do research and drink out everyone else's beer as well.
Awesome. Sherry?
Hi, I'm Sherry, the owner and founder of Bulldog Beer Company. I own it with my husband and partner, Jerome. We have been in business for we're actually going to be celebrating 5 years officially, but only 3 years on the market this upcoming December, which is very exciting for us. We are located in Chicago, so we're about 2 miles west of downtown. So we're in a really, really cool up and coming area. About 1 mile north from United Center, where the Bulls and the Blackhawks play. I'm just by a ton of really amazing restaurants. Our brewery is called Bulldog Beer Company because we have a huge love for English bulldogs. English bulldogs used to be referred to as bull dogs. We thought that was very fitting for our personalities. So that is a little bit about us.
That's great. All right, we're going to jump into some questions. I'm going to start with Dali. I know you talked about what inspired you to open your brewery, but I guess what are some expectations that you had when starting, and have they proven to be true or different, and how?
Yeah, some of the expectations that that we were kind of going into is, when we first opened, there was no breweries in our particular area of town. And so one of the questions that we would ask ourselves is our community ready for us? You know, are they ready for us just like as we are ready for them? And, you know, just a little bit, I don't want to say fear, but just uncertainty, or are we going in the right direction? And the amount of support and encouragement that we got, not only from our community and our neighborhood, but our whole county. And, you know, with COVID, not only our county, but just everyone, all in the States, you know, pivoting into online orders, you know, being able to you know, just feel the embrace and the support and the camaraderie from everyone around.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, as you mentioned, that's especially important in times like COVID, where you were welcomed in the community, you have done a lot for your community. And then, of course, in times like this, you can sort of rally together to support. That's great. Sherry, I want to talk about, I know we know the background of the Bulldog, and I have known all these folks for a long time coaching, and I've gone through a lot of their design process too. If you haven't seen it, they're great. But my question for you is, what really inspired you? I know you have a great backstory about what inspired you and Jerome to open the brewery.
Yeah, so we had started as home brewers, and it was something that we just, really, really fell in love with. We entered a couple competitions, did really well in the competitions, and then sort of decided to take things to the next level. While we were going through starting up the paperwork, our bulldog Beefy passed away. He had been my husband's sort of first big kid purchase after graduating college. He'd always wanted a bulldog. Beefy was just the perfect name for this dog. So we wanted to make sure we could sort of keep him alive through our brand. So almost all of our cans, our labels, everything has a little English bulldog, usually Beefy, on it. But we had tried to get a loan through a few different banks, and then was turned down by every single one of them. And then actually Chase told us about Accion. And then we went ahead and started the paperwork with them and met Jen about 4 years ago. And I think, the rest is kind of history.
That's great. I know it's hard to believe it's been so many years that we've all been together doing this. So, Alicia, I have to ask you, so I want to know what inspired you to open a brewery, but I guess part of it is you have five children. Starting any business with 5 children and working full time is challenging. I personally know running a brewery is extremely challenging. So we want to know what inspired you, but also I can't even imagine the conversations about, or, did you discuss it a lot and think about how are we going to get this all done? Or were you just like, this is our dream and we're going to do it, and everybody jumped in and was on board?
Yeah. So what inspired us is, we enjoyed drinking beer. My husband started brewing in the garage, took over a 3-car garage with all the stuff. And so we were having a lot of fun brewing and drinking beer. We had so much beer that we had to start organizing parties with our families and friends so they would come over and help drink the beer. And so part of that, we started pairing our beers with food and just having a lot of fun. And we love to entertain. We love the community that it brings together. And so out came 1912. 1912 is actually the year that Arizona became a state. And so that's why we named it. We're both natives from here in Tucson. As far as challenges of having a family of 5, at the time we didn't have 5. We only had 3 at that time. But it really was that we knew that they loved it as well. They loved being with us. They loved hanging out with us and bringing our family and friends together. And so we were just like, yeah, let's just jump all in and open the brewery.
I love it. It is a family business, regardless of age, because everybody has to support, especially the parents. Which leads me to, I know, Della, you have children. What are some of the challenges now balancing your brewery, your location, being a parent, and I don't even know if we can even get into what being a parent during COVID is like, but what are some of those challenges, and how can you separate them and make sure you're sort of, the pressure we all have, you're giving is what you need to give your business to make it successful, but you're giving what your family what needs to be successful too.
I think for some of the things that are different now with our family, they've been a process. Like our boys, we have two boys, 8 and 12, and they've been a process from when we were doing the dig outs and the build out and the tanks coming in. So they've always been there with us through the whole journey, and seeing them grow up and having them seeing us, Tim and I work together and work hard and getting to know everybody in the brewery, because it really is a family. I've had my kids fall asleep on grain bags before, when we're there working. I've seen them running around, and then I'm like, where did Dante go? I look over, he's asleep on a grain bag, so they are involved just as we are, and having them be a part of that. And, when I see my 8-year-old son's little drawings with school, and he draws 2 little figures with a pint, being handed from one little figure to another, for us, it makes me feel that they see all of our hard work, and, they know that everything we're doing is for our family unit as well as our community. So, right now with COVID, distance learning is definitely a challenge that we've had to kind of that we're still learning, and it's ongoing for us in terms of technology and just being available. But one of the things that I've learned with all of this is, definitely practicing a lot of self-care, taking care of myself, so that I can also be able to take care of my family and our community at the brewery as well.
That's so critically important. And then you mentioned the last part is, on top of it all, you're also trying to take care of your community, not only with great beer, but I know all of you do many things in your community. So thank you. Speaking of that, I wanted to ask Sherry, describe your connection, because I know you also have an interesting setup, if you can talk about sort of what your taproom is like. So describe your connection, your brewery location, and how that connects to your community.
Yeah, so our brewery is set up a little bit different. So last April, we opened up District Brew Yards. So District Brew Yards is actually a collaborative effort with 4 different breweries under one roof. So it's us, Burnt City, who sort of started the whole idea, Around the Bend, who's another brewery in Chicago, and then Casa Humilde. So it's all 4 of us under one roof. We all share the same production facility. We all share everything in the entire space. So it's very, very interesting and tricky to work with 4 other breweries. But I always say that we kind of function as a family. Everybody, you love your siblings. Everyone loves their siblings. Well, but everyone still wants to be the favorite at the end of the day. That's what we always joke when people say, there's a competition between you guys. It's like, no, we work together, we do a great job together, but everyone still wants to be mom and dad's favorite at the end of the day. So, I mean, we're gonna try for that. But yeah, so we work, like I said, very closely with 3 other breweries under that space. We do, before COVID hit, we were doing Cents for Causes, which is something we would do every single Wednesday night, where 10 cents of every pint that is poured is going back to a nonprofit in our community. So we've worked with, we've actually done one for Accion, our small business lender. We've done one with Hope for a Day, who works closely with mental health and suicide prevention. Back on My Feet, which helps combat homelessness. And then Girls Rock, which is just trying to get girls, especially young girls, into music, which is actually something that's huge and important to Jerome and I. So that's really important for us to do. The other thing that we are doing, the beer that we brewed with Sam Adams as part of the Brewing the American Dream program this year, with sort of everything that has happened in 2020, and especially in our city, we really wanted to try to be try to work towards a solution to try to help everybody have access to, the access to the capital and everything that we have access to, regardless of your socioeconomic background or the neighborhood that you're in. So what we are doing is we are donating 100% of the proceeds from Sammy, which is our collaboration beer with Sam Adams, back to Accion. We're really excited. We have $10,000 already put aside. So we're hoping to be able to get some more, but we're really, really proud that we were able to do that for Accion and our community.
No, we were thrilled because we had the beer. To be the last people I saw were Sherry and Jerome on March 9th. The date is stuck in my mind. So those are, and we brewed their beer that week, and so we had a lot of fun. So I was really glad not only that your taproom was open to take the beer, but then Sherry and Jerome had this great idea to give back to the Brewing the American Dream program, which, it's interesting. A lot of people ask me, why do you help all these breweries? Like, you're basically creating competitors. And I remember I've worked for Jim Koch, our founder and brewer now, for over 19 years. And I remember years ago talking about something with him. And I said, well, and this was not about Brewing the American Dream, it was actually about cleaning draft lines. And I said, well, if we clean all these draft lines and we're training everybody, aren't we like giving our competitors also an edge? And he said, Jennifer, if everybody is making and selling great beer, it's great for the industry. And this is before craft was today. And it always stuck with me. And when I got involved in this program, I thought, this is amazing, because we want breweries, we want these core pieces of our community. We want them to be a place that is helping their communities, making great beer. And again, that elevates not only businesses, small businesses, which is awesome, but opportunities for craft drinkers, right? Like ourselves, to be able to go around and support different small businesses in the community. So it's amazing. Love that. So I'm going to go over to Alicia. I want to ask you, as a female, and again, knowing that you work full time and you're a mom and all that, but what are some stereotypes that you had that were challenging to you, whether when you were starting the brewery or even now in the industry, if you run into any of those stereotypes?
Mostly what we run into, or what we try and really kind of stay away from and don't want to alienate, is women, right? So we try and use very specific beer names and beer labels where we're not doing that type of alienating them, basically. And so a lot of our names come from my husband being a veteran or my Hispanic background. We've also loved to watch movies and listen to music. And so so it's mainly, I think that's the biggest stereotype challenge that I've had, is just, is just being a woman and being able to not capitalize on that so much, but bringing everyone together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know over the years, many people have asked me, a lot of females that I've met in the industry have said to me, I can't find a strong female mentor, or, and I think one of the things I've always found was when I started almost 20 years ago, it was hard to find strong female mentors. I mean, this is a great example now, showing just on this panel that there are amazing female mentors out there. But I always would tell people, and if you're interested in getting in the industry, they don't have to be female, but they have to recognize that you are a female, because there are different challenges. And I think for me, having the managers that I did and working for Jim Koch, he always recognized that. So I think that to me was an important part of the stereotype. I mean, I've had truck drivers come and say, hey, sweetheart, I need to get one of the guys to sign this. And I said, well, you have to wait, or I could sign it, and they'll wait. And then they find out I was the one who had to sign it. Right. So it's, there's still some of those stereotypes, which, sadly are still around. But I think as you continue to see the growth of the craft beer industry, there's so many opportunities. You don't have to be a brewer. There's so many opportunities to get in the industry, and even as a craft drinker. So I think that's amazing. And I think we have a long way to go, but we are getting there. Dolly, I want to go back to you and talk about, on that vein, are there any specific organizations that you felt have provided support being a female brewery owner?
Yeah, here in San Diego, I mean, we have Pink Boots, which is a pretty big one. Having the opportunity to work with them and getting to know them, and being involved in all the great works that they do around the county. There's a really good one too here in San Diego called Mujeres Brew Club that is pretty new as well. And, it's getting women together to where it's creating a safe place of where you can go and not feel intimidated and taste beers, talk about beers, get educated on beers. So being a part of those networking groups really is helpful. I had one particular day where one day I got a visitor from Colombia. She came to the States because she was about to start a course on the SDSU brewing program. But by the time she got here from Colombia, she realized that the class had been dropped because they didn't have enough enrollment. And so she visited our brewery, and she was visiting. So we were able to get her in and, get her behind the brew house and do what we could, to be able to help her back during the stay while she was here, just to make sure that her trip was worthwhile. And so being able to, form those relationships and give back is really fun for us.
That's amazing. Sherry, same question to you. Are there any specific organizations, and then, also it could be industry related, but then also in Chicago?
Yeah, so I'm actually part of a group on Facebook, which sounds silly. I'm never even on Facebook anymore, but this group is specifically for women who drink beer. It's called Craft Beer Girls, Beer and Body. So it is just this amazing group where it's all women. It is nothing but support. We have different subgroups in it. So there's, the main regular group. Each state has its own subgroups. So you can talk to different women in your state. And we have different meetups in every state, which is just incredible. They've recently just made a subgroup strictly for brewery owners. So now I have this resource in this group that I can literally just post a question in there and I know that someone will answer it. Last week I had to process a refund in FinTech and I had no idea how to do it. And I didn't feel like sitting on hold and calling them and waiting. Posted on FinTech, got a private message 5 minutes later. Someone walked me right through it. So it was just incredible. It's just an absolutely amazing group. It can be from anyone who's just a really simple craft beer drinker all the way up to brewery owners. And it's a really, really nice space for people just to be able to talk to like-minded women who also like beer.
That's fantastic. Alicia, I'm going to ask you the same question. So any specific organizations that you felt provided support as a female brewery owner?
I took a leadership program through the YWCA of Southern Arizona here, which is a really great program, and learned a lot of not only about myself, but just being a leader in general. And the YWCA is really all about empowering women, having diversity, they have lots of different services. And so I think they are the biggest ones here that I turn to lean to. They're not necessarily all about brewery, but I am friends with a lot of the women who own other breweries. I think there are about 22 breweries here in Arizona. And so, we're all Facebook friends. So reaching out to them or giving them a call or texting if I have questions or just need help, that's always available to me.
That's fantastic. I'm going to switch veins a little bit. I mean, I know that we're still, in COVID times, and we've had to stretch our creativity. We've had to be even more flexible, and I know you have each done some creative things around your tap rooms and beer sales. But I'm wondering, how do you continue as an entrepreneur, as a brewery owner, to grow? You can continue to make new beers, but how do you continue to grow and think about your business and sort of long-term strategy as a brewery owner? Talia, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for us, I think, prior to COVID, 90% of our sales were, generating from the tap room. So we had to adapt quickly. We had to pivot and change lanes, in order to stay operable. Right now, our current situation is we're working with a 25% capacity in the tier that we're in our region in California. We're operating both indoor and outdoor use. The whole purchase of a meal component, which is what we have right now, is still ongoing for us. But, it's constantly engaging with our patrons, our team as well, in terms of, keeping everyone current as to what we're doing as a company to make sure we're keeping everyone safe, what they can expect when they visit our brewery, and just absolutely just being present in the moment and being to adapt and just quickly, change what we have to make sure that we're, doing the best that we can under the circumstances.
Yeah, that's great. Usually I don't like to ask the same question all around the circle, but I'm going to do this because I think this is important, because it's sort of the twofold. It's, how do we continue to look at our longer term strategy, but then what are we doing right now? So Sherry, if you can answer that too, it'd be great.
Yeah, so it's funny. You were probably the last person we saw before we shut down for COVID. So we got back, and since we got back to Chicago, and since I had been traveling, I also still work full time as well. My work wanted me to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that Friday, I would have gone back to the office on Monday. Everything in Chicago shut down, and we're still obviously under pretty limited capacity. So Illinois, Chicago itself is actually doing a very, very good job, which is awesome. So we are now able to do 50% capacity inside, which is really, really great. We do also have a massive patio that we are able to use, which is also fantastic. We bought some solo stoves and some heat lamps because it is starting to get pretty cold here at night. And that's the other struggle, is trying to bring people to our patio when it's winter in Chicago. which is not exactly the type of time you want to be sitting outside. So that's going to be a big struggle for us this winter. I mean, last winter, we basically survived on our taproom sales, since it's just, not a lot of people buy from liquor stores at that time. A lot of people do sober January or sober February, so it'll be very, very interesting to see sort of how we're able to get through this winter, which I know we will. We're trying to be very creative about it. But yeah, we had to switch to a completely different format almost immediately. I mean, we got all these great ideas of things we can do to increase sales and our accounting, and then everything shut down, and we really weren't able to put any of those into work. We have been able to make a lot of adjustments, which has been great. Our distribution sales have actually tripled during this time, which I think goes to show that during a quarantine, a mandatory lockdown, people really enjoy drinking, which worked out well. But it'll be interesting to see sort of what we're able to do this winter, and the creative stuff we're able to do to get through this.
That's great. Alicia, I want to ask you the same question. And I obviously in Tucson, I think the weather, you're coming into an even more comfortable season for outdoors. So if you can talk about sort of, again, how do you continue to grow as an entrepreneur, but then, how are you thinking that now with COVID and your business moving forward?
Yeah, we also depended on our tap room when we are operating at 50% capacity. We don't have any outdoor space. So recently we've started looking at how we can do that. We would have to tear down and put up the outdoor space every single day. And so that's one of the challenges we're trying to understand, like how can we create barriers that people feel comfortable sitting outside, enjoying the wonderful weather in Tucson, because it is finally getting under 100 degrees. It's been pretty hot here. But in the fall, it does get really nice in the 80s, even down to the 70s. And so we also had to shift, into more canning. We've recently bought a canning machine that we're expecting any day now for a lot of the to-go packages that people like to still pick up, or they don't want to come in and drink in the tap room. And it's also a good way for those, because we do have to turn away people on our busy days, for them just to grab some beer that they can enjoy at home. I myself like to listen to Rachel Hollis and Christy Wright as far as mentors and role models. They're all about, they're entrepreneurs. They offer great advice about running a business, about how to grow a business. And they also talk a lot about self-care and marriage and things, because those things are important as we own our businesses and need help and advice on how to get through those things. And so I listen to a lot of their podcasts and read a lot of their books.
That's awesome. Dahlia, that's a great question. I love thinking about sort of mentors and personal motivation. So do you have any mentors or role models that you either look up to as an entrepreneur, or like Alicia, are there certain things you might listen to or follow that really kind of keep you motivated and excited?
Absolutely. I mean, I can go as far as within our own, neighborhood and community, and, running into our fellow brewery neighbors down the street, or other, tap rooms in the area, and asking everybody just generally, how are you doing? What's going on with you? And sharing our stories. I mean, sharing our experiences and sharing the changes that we're all kind of going and through together. In terms of inspiration, I mean, I look at my kids and my husband, and I see how hard my husband's working, and I look at just breweries that I admire just across the whole state and the country. And I feel like, okay, so we're all just really just pulling together, during these times. And for me, that's what keeps me going.
No, I think it's very sad and tragic. There are many words for everything that's happening right now, especially for small businesses. And but to me, I look at that same inspiration and people who are being creative and changing their sort of business model. And I'll probably say this 3 more times before we're done at least. But this is look up your local breweries, look up small businesses. Their storefronts may not be open, but many have created different models for takeout, or even some virtual programming, which like this. So I would definitely encourage you to continue to support your local breweries and find out, what they have going on. Sure, I want to ask you the same question. So what are some personal motivations or mentors or role models that you've had in it, not necessarily in the brewing industry, but that, sort of you look to for inspiration and continued support? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first people that popped into my mind are my mom and dad. My parents have been so insanely supportive my entire life. I mean, even Jen, you've met them. They when we flew out to Boston, we had a 6-month-old at the time, and my parents drove up from Cape Cod and were more than happy to just sort of take him for a couple of days, and we were more than happy to have them take him for a couple of days as well. But they were so excited to come back and to come into Sam Adams and just to meet everyone and to see everything. My dad walks around and just he gets so excited anytime he gets to see anything that we're doing. And my mom, I think, is actually watching this. She bought a ticket last night, so hi, Mom. So I would say on a personal level, they've always shown my sisters and I just what it means to work hard and, how to provide for your family and how to be great parents. I actually have a really similar story to with Dolly. It's, there's so many amazing breweries around here, and we're friends with a lot of the owners and people who work there. And I think just, being able to go in and talk to them and, share our experiences with them, that's sort of, one of our biggest motivations and mentors is just being able to bounce ideas off of different owners in the city. And
Yeah, that's great. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Hi, Mom. Nice to see you. I think that brings up a good, one of the parts of the program we talk about with Brewing the American Dream is that we've mentored over 11,000 people, and I would say to anybody who's interested in getting into the brewing industry in some way, or even just finding out more information, you have a lot of networking groups. I see some in the chat here, so that's awesome. And these ladies have shared some of theirs, but continuing to look in your local area for groups like that or small business, but find ways to get involved in your local or state beer institute or beer guild. They often have, I know in Massachusetts, we have a very strong guild, and it's very strong both for the industry and also for our craft drinkers in Massachusetts. So they provide information and educational resources and opportunities for folks to learn about jobs in the industry. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in that. There are definitely a lot of resources out there now, and network and really get to know the small breweries in your area and the larger breweries in your area, and that provide some opportunities. So I think one thing I want to talk about is all of you are owning a brewery with your significant other. And all of you have been into the home brewing. So are there challenges sometimes with thinking about sort of beer styles? I have never liked, as a female brewer, people say, oh, that's a beer you make for women. That's a beer you make for men. I'm like, no, I make great beer for anyone to enjoy. Right. And so do you have any, maybe a funny anecdote or any stories around like, how do you work through like sort of innovation and sort of your R&D process? Because as beer drinkers, we all have opinions on beers that we like. So I'd love to hear some of those from you. I'll start with Dally.
Yeah, I think for us, right now, just having those discussions as to what Tim would like to brew or what I would like to see out there, hazy beers were something that it took us a while to kind of catch on to. We barely made our hazy in the last 4 months, our first hazy for as long as we've been open. Seltzers is another interesting conversation that we've had between each other, but just understanding that his palate is different than my palate. And also, just being in tune to what our patrons want to see and drink, not necessarily what we might want to enjoy on the board ourselves because we enjoy it, but also being in tune with what I don't want to say trends, but really other styles that we might not necessarily be curious ourselves, but definitely just partake in the process and learning and growing from that.
Yeah, I think that's always an interesting concept people are like to hear is like, I consider brewing an art, and I can create a lot of art, a lot of beer of styles that I like or that I find interesting to me. But ultimately, as brewery owners and brewers, we have to make beer that people want to drink. So it's making sure you're in touch with the drinkers and making sure that you're providing those types of options for people. And I know I've actually run across several breweries in the past few months through our Brewing the American Dream brewers who are telling me that they don't even have an IPA on draft right now because that's their drinkers. They like a lot of the other styles. So it's interesting. I think, you want to have what your drinkers want to drink, but then you also can balance it with what you want to drink. And so I have one more question that just came up in the chat, which is good timing. So what is your favorite beer that you have in your tap room right now? I'll start, Dally. I'll go to you, and then I'll ask the next questions to next folks.
Yeah, for me right now, what I'm really enjoying is our Pilsner. It's our Papa's Pils, and it comes in at 5.2%. Just really nice, light, easy drinking. We're just kind of here being in San Diego. We have really great, we've been having 75, 80-degree weather. So just a really nice, light, easy drinking beer.
That's perfect. I am going to go to Sherry. Sherry, can you talk about you and Jerome and how you work through the innovation process and new beer styles? And then at the end, you can tell us what your favorite beer that you have on your tap room right now.
Yeah. So Jerome and I, we always joke and say that we don't take much in life serious. We take the actual production of the beer seriously, and then raising our child. And that's about it. And paying bills on time. We take that seriously. So we try to have fun with the process as much as we can. We end up, a lot of our beer names are very silly, and a lot of our descriptions are very silly. We're silly people, and we want that to come out in what we create. So, I mean, I always think the best example is I grew up in Massachusetts, and in my hometown was a chocolate factory. And I got really homesick one day, and I really wanted to make a beer that reminded me of home. So I was talking to Jerome about it, and we were trying to figure out what home tastes like. And I realized I wanted to make a beer that smelled like chocolate, because that's what, walking out of school as a kid, if the wind was blowing right, the whole town would smell like chocolate. And then growing up in New England, we put blueberries in everything, blueberry ice cream, blueberry everything. So we wanted to make a beer that smelled like chocolate and tasted like blueberries. And so that's sort of how, our beer ideas come up. We also, for the longest time, were really hesitant to make an IPA. There's a bar down the street that we used to go to a lot, and we'd be sitting at the bar and people would come in and, I'd like an IPA. Like, okay, well, we have over 50 IPAs on the menu. What type of IPA would you like? Oh, I don't care. Just give me an IPA. And we wanted to make a beer called Intentional Prank Ale, AKA IPA, and it was going to be an imperial porter. And it was just supposed to taste like a birthday cake, sort of like, we tried to make like clown themed. The beer ended up not even making it out of production. We didn't actually really like it. But, that's just sort of where our brains kind of go to when it comes to our beer names. Even last night we were sitting at a local brewery and we had a smoked Helles, which I don't personally enjoy smoked beers, and neither does Jerome. So we were asked if we would ever make a smoked beer, and both of us immediately said no, because we really like bringing home our beer to drink, and I don't think that either one of us would drink it. So I think until we're bigger, we're pretty big snobs when it comes to the beers that we make. We want them to be ones that we'll enjoy. And then my favorite beer right now at our tap room, we actually just started a sour series, a Goza series. So we currently we're calling it Underbite to fit with our dog theme. So this one is Underbite Fruit Punch. So it's blood orange, pineapple, and strawberry Goza. And it is fantastic.
That sounds amazing. I love it. And also, I mean, as an artist, it's one of those things where the great news is, as brewery owners and brewers, you can make what you want to make. And that's fantastic. And the good news is that the craft drinker is so interested in exploring and tasting different things that the good and bad news is you can share them in your tap room and you can get immediate feedback. That's one thing I love that I've seen change over the last 20 years. So for good or for bad, your customers are right there, your drinkers, and they'll tell you exactly what they think. So it can help guide the direction, which I also love. Alicia, if you can talk about how you and Alan do your innovation and, adjust to different palates and all that. And then at the end, tell us your favorite beer you have on tap in your tap room.
Sure. Yeah, so we have 20 taps in our tap room, and we always actually like to have a variety. Our palates change and our customers' palates change, right? So we are actually known for sours, so we love to make gosas. And it was something that I drank early on, but in the past year or so, I really just kind of leaned towards lagers and pilsner. So again, we like to have a variety. We brew based on what's needed for distribution. We also brew based on what time of year it is. We don't typically make a lot of dark beers in the summer because it's so hot here. So we started making some stouts. It also depends on, events that we have coming up. We just celebrated Oktoberfest, and we made a beer for that. And so we look to our events that we're doing and to really think about what do we need to make or what will people enjoy. So right now, my favorite beer on tap is our Tahueno, which is a Mexican amber. Tahueno means it's good, just Spanish slang for it's good. Nice, easy to drink, has notes of like caramel and toffee. And so I love it. It's really good.
That's awesome. I have to say, I'm drinking an Oktoberfest because it's one of my favorite seasonal beers. But the favorite beer that I had this week in our tap room was, we also have a Pilsner, and I also cannot get enough. I love, as a brewer, I will say I can find great beer examples in every style. But Pilsners to me, lagers, obviously lager brewers, so tight connection there. But I do love the Pilsner style. So it seems like that's also a popular here. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we have a couple questions that we will take. So I guess just some final thoughts from each of you on what would you say to someone who is interested in opening up a brewery or even getting more involved in the industry? And I'll start with you, Dali.
Yeah, for me, I would say, be flexible. A lot of the times we can make all these plans and projections and, have all these ideas of the direction that we're going, and things can quickly change. So just being flexible, being fully present, and delegate, get help. Because no matter how good you think you are at doing everything, we really just, trust your team. A lot of the times they can do things better than how we think we can get it done. So definitely accept the help, and, be open. And, for us, what's always worked is having a sense of transparency with each other and with our team.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. I would say just, when you think about tasting beers and when you're starting out too, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with friends and family who will be open and honest with you, not just about your beers, but about some of your business ideas. But then making sure you have some outside folks that maybe don't have, that could really be unbiased around that. I think that's really incredibly important when you're opening a brewery, because it's very easy opening any small business. I mean, the reason why people like you fine ladies open businesses is because they're passionate about it. They're excited about it, and that's amazing. And that's what actually gets businesses started, along with the capital and the coaching and all that. You have to have that passion, but making sure you're not blinded by your own passion, that you can actually be surrounded by people who are going to give you the best feedback to continue to not only open your brewery, but continue to grow it. Sherry, any final thoughts you would leave with someone who wanted to open their own brewery?
Yeah, I would say just, again, sort of similar to what Dali said, just make sure you have a really great partner going into this with, Jerome and I work really, really well together, but, there's obviously been days where there's been challenges, but we have always been able to understand each other's side. And I think that's something that's really important, is sort of, sometimes it's putting pride aside, sometimes it's putting, what you want aside and doing what's best for everybody. I think also having, people that you can talk to in the industry. I mean, we have a great relationship with, we live in a really nice, small little neighborhood in Chicago. We have a few different of our accounts in this neighborhood, and we know that we can ask them, what beer is selling really well? What's something that you guys think that, would sell really well from us? And we always ask for input and feedback on our beer names and our labels and how everything's received from local places. So I guess just also being humble, being able to accept feedback and make the changes that you need to based on that feedback, I think is really important.
That's fantastic. Sherry, can I tell them a story about when I first met Jerome and the beer?
Yeah.
So Jerome had brought some beer samples in Chicago for a coaching event, and I was so excited. And there was a few defects, fermentation defects in it. And I was thinking, like, how do I communicate this? It was one of the first times I was really coaching. I'm glad it was Jerome and I, because it worked perfect together. And I said, I have to be honest. And he goes, there's some diacetyl. And I said, yeah. And so we talked about how he could correct it in the next brew. And I think it was only like 10 months later, I was back in Chicago and he brought it and we were just like toasting. We're like, this is amazing. So, being able to take that feedback was great. Now he jokes. He's like, well, Jennifer told me my beer tasted. I was like, that's not how I said it. But it's important to make sure that you have that, I think, because it is separating the rules a little bit too and playing to your strengths when you have a partner. It doesn't have to be a significant other. Most people go into opening breweries or opening their small businesses with a partner or multiple partners, and making sure, you have sort of some clearly defined rules based on your skill sets. If you're a great brewer, then maybe you don't have your hand in all the business side because you're going to be busy making beers. It's enough, as you all know, as small business owners, small brewery owners, you're already doing so much. So, as you can start to, play to people's skill sets is fantastic, which I know all of you are doing. That's why you have these great breweries. Alicia, if you could talk about any final thoughts. Somebody wants to open a brewery.
Yeah, what I would say is, it's a lot of hard work. A lot of people think that it's fun and glamorous, but it really is a lot of cleaning. 90% cleaning is what we tell people, and 10% brewing. And so if you're really serious, I would recommend getting a job in a brewery. And if you can't get the job, then shadow somebody, talk with somebody, sit down with them, ask them all the questions. Because as an owner, you really wear a lot of hats. And so you're constantly learning, you're constantly balancing. And so I would really recommend getting experience up front, and then that'll help you understand if it's really something you want to do long term.
That's great. I think sometimes it does seem, I guess maybe glamorous is a good word, that, you have a brewery, you can have all the beer you want. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. It's definitely not as glamorous as it seems. I'm going to take one of the questions that was asking about the financial program. So if you want more information on Brewing the American Dream, it's brewingtheamericandream.com. And then the program is Accion. It's ACCION, and they are the loan, our lender. And if you go to the Brewing the American Dreams website, there's details on that and that organization, if you're interested. And they're really great. What I love about our lending partner, and we've been partners with them from the beginning, we would not be where we are today without Accion, is because they also work very closely with our small businesses to make sure that people aren't taking too big a loan. It's easy to think, okay, well, I need this much money for this, but maybe I should just tag on this. But they're very careful around that because they want to make sure that everybody can pay back their loan, which is why the repayment rate is so high, and then come back. Many of our businesses and breweries go back and get multiple loans. And some of the largest loans we've had have been for breweries, expanding, getting new real estate, new equipment. So it's a great organization. So if you're interested in starting a small business, whether it's a brewery or something else, there's more details again on brewingtheamericandream.com. And so I had a great question here. As brewery owners, if something seems off to a customer, are you open to them telling you? I know we talked about this a little bit with our sort of friends and family, but I think this is really interesting. And so you have a customer come in and they tell you the beer is off, and it may be off or may not be off. I know you're all open to it because we just talked about it, but how do you respond to that? And, what do you do with that information? Delia, I'll start with you.
Hey, I've had people in our tap room come and say, I came when you first opened and I had this particular beer, and I'll be honest with you, it was lacking this, or I, was able to taste this. And having them come back 2 to 3 years later and having those conversations with me is really valuable, because, those are the moments where I learn. Those are the moments where we can, we appreciate that feedback and that honesty, because it's really what's going to take us, to that next level, to make sure that we're doing what we can and making sure that the quality is up to par with what beers we're making. That's
great. Sherry, I'd like you to answer the same question, but I also, a little tag on for you is, since you're in a situation where you have multiple breweries there, is there a challenge sometimes to separate your identity from the other breweries? And I was just thinking, sometimes it's very easy for people to think, district, okay, it's sort of one thing, even though they get the concept when they get there. So if you can answer the question, how you would deal with a customer talking about something off, but then also how that works with multiple breweries under the one roof.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. We all work really well together, and we all are very cognizant of making sure that we don't have something too similar to each other. Obviously, everybody has a hazy. There's 2 different breweries that we both have some sort of sour series. But, we really, really try to make sure if someone comes over and says, I'm not a big beer drinker, I just want something, that's similar to, a Blue Moon. Well, I know that we don't have that right now, but if you look over, on Burnt City's wall, you would probably really like this beer. And that's something that we do really, really well, just to make sure, everyone's able to help each other, and then everyone's able to drink what they want. And then to answer the question, I would absolutely want to know if something was off, because that's my heart and soul, and I want to know if it's not up to what it's supposed to be.
That's great. Alicia, same question to you. We know you're open to it, but how would you deal with it? And then what do you do with that information once you get it, if it's something that you really found was like, oh, that's really interesting, no one's ever told us that before?
Yeah, so we have, we get feedback of various ways, whether it be in the tap room as somebody's enjoying a beer, through Untapped as people are reviewing beers, through their social media channels. They might say something, or they might comment on our social media. And for us, I think it just depends. We'll ask questions about, what are you tasting? Why, what is it that seems off about the beer? If they're in the tap room, we'll obviously offer to exchange it. We have exchange beer for people who have taken it home in cans and don't like it. But it's really just understanding what it is that they don't like about it. And then going on from there, because I think, if somebody takes home a sour and they're telling you it tastes sour, well, then you kind of just educating people of what the beer should taste like. So it's interesting, but we're always open to feedback.
Yeah, I think that actually, to me, and just my experience has been making sure you have great folks that are working in your tap room that probe a little bit when people order. I think, you can sort of tell when someone maybe not sure, and really making sure they're educated on, which of course is another thing that you have to do on top of, is educating your staff to make sure that they can help customers purchase. I mean, I think for the off flavors or defects in beer, I always tell brewers, you get one shot at a customer today, because there are so many breweries and there's so many opportunities. I mean, obviously it's a little bit different with COVID, but with COVID, I think, for what I'm hearing from drinkers is that they're less likely to purchase something if they haven't tried it, because they don't want to have to go back out again, or they want to know they like it. So I think, during this time, making sure your staff is educating and making sure people are purchasing what they want, but then also, making sure that your beer is always clean and what they're expected. And nobody wants to throw beer down the drain. It's a very tearful experience. It's money going down the drain. It's time, it's a lot of love. But ultimately, if that beer isn't, good and can't be sort of rescued, then that's, where it should go, because you want to make sure your drinkers and your customers that are coming repeatedly. And Dali, I love that you had a customer that came and then 5 years later, they're still drinking at your tap room. So, I think people will, give a brewery, 1 or 2 chances, but you need to make sure you have great beer there. There was also a question about the Brewing the American Dream, and are we planning to mentor breweries outside of the U.S.? Right now, our focus is around the country. We typically, in a non-COVID year, would host about 15 speed coaching events around the country. That's our networking event and coaching event. So if you go to our Facebook page for Brewing the American Dream, hopefully when we're out of this, we will have some more live events. In the interim, we are doing some coaching for small businesses virtually. We have a great platform we're using that we just launched last week. And so the opportunity there for us is, as we go around the country, and as these brewery owners we're talking about through the program, you get to sign up with coaches of all different disciplines, and you get 20 minutes with the coach. And, like I said, it's incredible, because I always leave with new ideas and new information and a lot of new friends, and so do these folks too. So I would encourage you, if you are interested, again, in a small business or starting a brewery, keep your eye out for some events through Brewing the American Dream. But currently we are going to stay focused on the US. But I've learned one thing from Jim Koch: never say never, because we've said never a few times and we've eaten our words. So I will say there could be a chance to expand, and that could be amazing if we were able to do that outside the US. And I'm just going to take a look here and see if there's any other questions. There was one here, and I think we're coming up on time if there's no more questions after this. So let's talk about, what is your best advice for surviving 2020 and beyond? And Dali, I'm going to start with you.
Yes, just understanding, this, we don't know how long, the COVID is here with us, but, understanding that this is just kind of the midst of that we're in. And again, the word for me for this year has just been flexibility. And I can't stress that enough, being flexible, being able to just, remain flexible and have that flexibility throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year really is just what premises, what I'm kind of sticking to, and that's what's helped us in the process.
That's great. Sherry?
Yeah, being flexible, being able to just sort of understand that everyone's just trying to do their best, and just just patience. Patience is I think really, really important this year.
And Alicia?
What I would say is stay positive, right? Stay in touch with your family, your friends, your community. From a business perspective, I would say be careful with your budget. There are a lot of programs out there if you do own a small business that you can go to for help to get you through COVID.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. A lot of, I mentioned, checking in on your small breweries that are around you or small business owners. I think for us, a lot of our, and where I learned a lot was, we sort of are very comfortable with a lot of the normal type of coaching that we've done over the years. And now we had people asking us questions about loans that they're getting from the government and how do they secure it. So we've had to really also ourselves, educate ourselves on that. And I think a lot of the small business associations around the country have worked with folks to make sure that they are using. I think the budget is a great point to call out. And I think the other thing is with the patients, as a consumer, as a drinker, you're not going to get everything that you want right now. And that's okay, right? Because I think it's still amazing that we're getting fresh beer. It's amazing that breweries can make beer still, right? So we should be thankful for that, and thankful for the beer that is being provided for us, because we're very fortunate that we're able to actually get these great breweries and these great beers. So, and I would say too, I think there was a comment in there about the financial challenges are really covered in the beer media. And I think, you won't, maybe if you're not looking, but there's always a lot of equipment for sale, and it's sort of bittersweet because it's a great opportunity for people. And it used to be that there was so much equipment for sale because breweries were expanding, and now, sadly, many breweries are shutting down. So I think, making sure that you're thinking again about these types of consumer products that you take in, so beer and small food and beverage businesses, and continuing to support them because it's amazing drinkers like all of you that keep us working and doing the passionate job that we love. And we cannot thank you enough, not only for your time today, but for continuing to drink amazing craft beer. So from deep down in my heart in Massachusetts, enjoying my Oktoberfest, I want to thank you all, especially those on the West Coast who got up so early today, including almost all of our panelists. It is so wonderful to see you guys. And I look forward to a time very soon that we can toast a beer in person together at your breweries.
Wow, Jennifer, what an amazing way to wake up with all of you wonderful ladies today. It's just been absolutely inspiring to hear how you built your breweries from the ground up, all the sweat, the tears, the beers that have gone into creating a business in this industry. I think creating a festival like Beers Without Beards is almost just like the tiniest of snapshots into what it's like to actually run a business and to build it from the ground up. So I do this for about a year of planning, and you guys are doing it, constantly every single day. And so it's really your stories and hearing all of your stories. And Jennifer, hearing how Samuel Adams and the Brewing American Dream program has provided access to capital, resources, mentoring to all these ladies and countless breweries across the country. That really reminds me why we do what we do and why we're all here. And so I want to just piggyback off what Jennifer said and thank you all so much for sharing all of your passion with us today. Jennifer, thank you so much to Samuel Adams for helping us put on this wonderful panel to kick off our full day of events for Beers Without Beards. And then Dali, Alicia, and Sherry, thank you again for hanging out with us and sharing more of your stories. So we, as I mentioned, have a full day of events that are happening. So we have about 10 minutes here before our beer and yoga. So we're going to get up, do some stretches, and then get ready to wake us up even more. And hopefully you guys will be joining us throughout a few of the other events of the day. But we'll say goodbye for now. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the amazing things that you ladies are going to continue to do in the industry, and Jennifer, how Samuel Adams is going to continue to help breweries grow and survive in this crazy craft beer industry. So we'll say goodbye for now, and thank you so much, ladies. Cheers.
Thank you, Grace.
Grace.
Thanks, Pop Culture.
Hi, everyone.